very good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Viola Kusasia, and you are watching NTV Medical Matters. Today we are talking about a rare condition, I would say, or disease called lupus that I've only ever heard from a celebrity, and finally I got to see a real case in real life, something I never thought would be possible. But in case you're also wondering and you've never seen it or heard of it, we are here to understand what it is, and we actually have a story from the field where we sat down and spoke to Nora. She has told us about her journey, and we are going to watch that first before we dive in. But I just wanted to let you know that we are supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Once again, you are welcome. Let's watch our story first, and then we shall dive into the discussion. Thank you so much, Nora, for creating time to talk to us about your condition, lupus. How did your life change, and at what point did you discover that you had lupus?
I was diagnosed with lupus in 2023, 3 years down the road now. It was after my second-born child, yes, that I realized I had lupus. I first went to Mengo, they didn't see the disease. I went to Rubaga, that's where I got to know that I have lupus. After that, swelling of the cheek. So from there I was referred to Mulago Hospital for further treatment. Yes, at Mulago Hospital I was seeing a rheumatologist, yes, every Monday. But since then it became worse and worse. I was admitted for 2 weeks. I was put on corticosteroids and other medication. From that, hair started breaking, the skin started becoming darker. I was on daily treatment. I could take a lot of tabs, like 12, day and night. Yes, most people assumed maybe I had HIV, but they made all those tests. They even checked cancer. I didn't have cancer. Some people believed it was witchcraft, but it was not. Yes. So from there I stabilized, like in that year. The following year, I didn't work. That was 2024. I didn't work, I was home. Life became so hard, so hard. I lost the hair. Then I was told to check the kidneys and other organs since it attacks those organs. I checked them and they were okay. But I was told that that medication still, it could lead me to that. Again, I got another attack last year in December. I lost memory. I even got bruises. I started fighting. Some of the bruises, as you can see.
Yes.
Yes. So I started on the treatment at Nakasero Hospital. I was seeing Dr. Sally. Yes, I was admitted there. It was quite expensive. I got friends, family donated for me. That's how I overcame. But still, medication was too expensive. Right now I'm home, I'm not working. Yes, it's very challenging. The kids have to go to school. They are still home. Yes.
You talked about not being financially stable since you realized you were sick and now you stay home. So talk to us about your life before you actually discovered you were sick. What was your daily life like?
Life before was okay. I was okay. My skin was very clear. I was light-skinned. Yes. Everything seemed normal.
Okay, so looking at you, I would see that the skin is truly affected, but away from what I can physically see, what are some of the other impacts that lupus has on your body? And we can also talk about mental health as a result.
The lupus affects the brain. It affects the brain. It affects the skin. You get it's called malarial rash. You get joint pains. You feel tired, brain fog. Like coming out of bed in the morning also becomes challenging. You feel tired every time. Yes. You even lose appetite due to the heavy medication you're getting. Yet you have to be on a regular diet, good diet. Yes.
Okay, being that it's a rare condition, I can imagine there must have been a lot of words around it. What are some of the misconceptions that you have come across, as well as the myths about lupus?
I've heard that she has HIV. Most people believe that it's HIV. Then others say it is witchcraft. Kind of.
Okay. And finally, Nora, we usually have a doctor that we speak with about these different conditions. Is there any question you'd love our doctor to answer once he's in studio with us?
Yes, I would love to ask about the hair. It has come in a different texture, and in some parts it has not yet come out. What causes that? And will it normalize after some time? Okay. Yes.
All right, thank you so much for that.
Welcome.
Once again, you're welcome to NTV Medical Matters this morning. I am Viola Xasia. We are supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That is Nora's story, and quite frankly, it was very hard to sit through that interview and to look at her transformation. I looked at some of her pictures, and to date, I still cannot believe she's the same person. So in case you're also there wondering, today we are here to discuss this condition, and we have our doctor in studio. I'll give him a chance to introduce himself, because also his name is a bit challenging for me, and then we shall dive in and understand what exactly is lupus. I'm literally shaking because it's hard to believe that transformation are just on screen. But Doctor, you're welcome, so let's dive into the discussion.
All right, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. We're going to talk about lupus. So when you hear the word lupus, usually we use the word systemic lupus erythematosus. So it means it's a disease that affects the whole body. Because when you just think lupus, maybe you think it's just one part. But it's actually a systemic disease which affects
Doctor, before we go any further, you
Yes.
need to introduce yourself to our viewers, please.
Oh,
yes.
sorry. My name is Fomom John. I work as the Chief Medical Officer for Victoria University, UMC Victoria Hospital. I have 16 years of experience.
Yeah.
Studied all my studies from Mulago, both undergraduate and also did postgraduate studies. So then finally went into the field, and I've been working at UMC Victoria Hospital for over 8 years. And now I work as the head of doctors and supervise the junior ones. Yeah.
That's very good. So, yeah, we have a good ground now to start off the discussion, now that our viewers know who you are. So let's talk about lupus. You had actually started.
Yeah, well, sorry about that. Sometimes we get caught up with medicine. So when we talk about lupus, we're looking at a disease that is beyond one organ. It's systemic. That's one. So you're looking at, as Nora mentioned in her story, it affects the brain. They're worried about the kidneys. It affects the face. It affects literally everything. It affects the joints everywhere. So when you think about systemic,
yes.
The second thing you want to think about lupus is that it's autoimmune. Now, autoimmune means for one reason or the other, the body identifies your cells as foreign. I like using the example. For example, if a war broke out and the army thought we were enemy soldiers, and instead come and start fighting us and shooting us, instead of fighting the enemy. So for one reason or the other, the body identifies itself as some cells as enemies and starts forming antibodies, which are soldiers, against those cells. Yeah. And lupus being systemic is because the antibodies are formed against the cell itself, the nuclear and the cytoplasm of the cell. You know, that's, if you understand your basic biology, that's the cell. So it affects everything. So you have autoantibodies against those cells. So you'll find it's affecting the whole body, and it's chronic. This doesn't really go away. But then you have troughs and crests. So there are moments when it's better, there are other points when it's worse, and that's how it keeps progressing all the time. And that also kind of affects the diagnosis and the health-seeking behavior, because today you're fine, then you fall sick for a few months, you've tested everything, nothing has been seen, then suddenly you're better, and nobody may actually figure out what is happening to you. Now, the other thing to know about lupus is that it somehow affects women more than men. It's actually sort of a 9-to-1.
All the cases that I've come across are only women.
Yes. So it's really, really 9-to-1 for women. So it's unfortunately a female disease, more or less. It doesn't mean that it doesn't affect men.
Yeah.
Yes. But generally we'll find it in 9 women to 1 man.
And we're going to find out why that could be the case, because also for Nora, she got lupus, or she noticed she had lupus after having her child.
Yeah.
She was actually fine from all that time. I asked her.
And yeah, also that's also to note that lupus, usually we see it in the reproductive age of a woman. So between 15 and 45, you find that's when you usually make the diagnosis of lupus. And as she said, it has, because you see, she discovered it after pregnancy. Yeah. It has a hormonal relationship. So the fluctuations of hormones kind of trigger this. But we have to note that the factors, pregnancy and all those things, are mainly triggers. Yeah. Already there is an autoimmune process going on. Yeah. So you just need something in the environment to kick off or to trigger something, and then the whole cascade starts. I've
been reading, some research talking about lupus as an invisible illness. Yes. Why is it called that?
It's called invisible because, for example, if I tell you I have a headache now, how would you know? So someone tells you they have brain fog, nobody understands them. Someone tells you I'm tired, there's no test to test tiredness or to test pain. My pain is my pain. Yeah. I tell you my pain is 10, you look at me and say I'm lying. So that's why it's called invisible. For a long time, nobody really knows what is happening. And on top of it being invisible, it's also called a mimicking disease because it mimics malaria. Because now when you have joint pains and a fever, people think it's malaria. They'll think it's typhoid. So it's also called a great mimicker.
I've come across words like that.
So it's invisible, it's mimicking, and that actually drives the delay in diagnosis, because for a long time you're checking everything else and not getting well and getting frustrated, and nobody really seems to know exactly what is happening.
There is this famous person that has lupus, or I think she has. I mean, you said it does not cure, so she has lupus. She had a very public story about it. That was the only first time I've ever heard about it, and I think the very last time until Nora, but she discussed so many things, had a lot of weight problems, had a lot of brain fog, had a lot of confusion, and her fans would always tell her, I think you're lying, because there was nothing to see there until she got a kidney transplant, and a lot of things happened around there. But you mentioned something interesting. It happens with women and around childbearing age. You said it's hormonal. What's happening with the hormones that could trigger that?
The menstrual cycle. At some point, your hormones are up, progesterone and estrogen. At some point, they're down. When you're pregnant, progesterone goes up, estrogen goes down. So all those things, those troughs and crests kind of trigger something in the body. And that's why you find it more in women. And it's one of the things that, because one of the things we find in these patients who have lupus is the rash. Yeah. So usually when you see a patient with a rash, one of the common questions we're asking in medicine is like, how is this rash related to your periods? Oh. Because we are trying to look into these things. Yes. Or the weakness when you're having your period, does it get better or worse? Those kind of questions is because we are trying to exclude lupus and SLE, as we call it, SLE in this kind of patient. Yeah.
A lot of people will have like, say, pimples or some other common rash when they have their periods, but they don't get lupus. So how special is that rash?
Now, the lupus rash is, the typical rash is what we call a mala rash. It's kind of, or a butterfly rash if you want.
Yeah.
It's a rash that goes across the bridge of the nose and to the cheeks. It's a bit typical, and strangely, it spares the lower part of the nose. So you find someone with a rash like that. That is, well, in medicine, once you see that, you're like, oh, this could be lupus. It doesn't have to be, but high chance to be lupus. But then you could also have other rashes. You have, there's what they call the discoid lupus. You just have a worse circular rash and sometimes raised. You can find it on the cheek, you can find it elsewhere. That could also point to lupus. Then they have photosensitivity.
Okay.
Now, photosensitivity is another sign of lupus because of the autoimmunity that's happening in them. The sun really triggers, and it's also one of the triggers for flares. So you find that in areas where you're exposed to sunshine, your face, your neck, the arms, they have a rash. And the rashes vary. It could just be a red skin, could be blisters, could just be scaly. But then when you see that it's particular areas which are exposed to the sunshine, that's what we call photosensitivity. So those are the things you're looking for in this kind of patient.
I just want to understand how lupus can be identified very fast, or when it's onsetting. What can you see in order to run to the hospital, and how does that help, if it does at all?
Now, what can you see? That's a difficult question because, as we've said, it's a great mimicker and it's an invisible disease. So you may actually not see. But then the question is, how do you feel? I'll start with how do you feel? Do you get up with brain fog? Do you have unexplained joint pains? Are you unexplainably tired? You rest, you're tired, nothing is shifting. You have a low-grade fever, you have joint pains, sometimes swelling. And so you have a lot of unexplained malaise. We call those malaise, and sometimes there's loss of weight, there's lack of appetite. Now, generally, in our setting, when you have such things, you go to hospital.
Yes.
And they'll do the basics. They'll do a blood test for malaria, for typhoid, and they may go on to do a urine check, and the basic things. But then in case that is not the cause, then probably you need to look further.
I have a question there. You know, I'm really concerned. If you feel sick or you don't feel fine, you've mentioned a range of things, and it's also a mimicker, as you've said. So how easy is it for a doctor or anybody at the hospital to determine what you're suffering from? How quickly can they understand this is lupus without, you know, heaping you drugs for something else?
One, you will have to see your general doctor or your basic doctor, and hope that they have, no, there's what we call an index of suspicion, because sometimes you just know that this is not, something is not tying. This patient's complaints are out of way to malaria. There's something not tying. This is just not malaria. The fever is not very high grade. The joint pains, it's prolonged 3 weeks. There's no malaria that is going to take you on for 3-4 weeks without you getting. I usually tell people either you die from the illness or you recover. But this disease that is not shifting. And then in medicine, we always say take a very good history. Now, if you go back into the person's history, you will find out that they may have had those symptoms sometimes in the past. Then they got better, and they forgot. Like that. So that's the wax and waning phenomenon of the disease. And now those are the things that will prompt you to think it's lupus. Then if you do your basic test, like what they'll do, what we call a CBC, you'll find that patient may have anemia, unexplained anemia, from your other, when you look at it in line with the other things, start asking yourself what's happening. Or you have your cells, generally we call it apnea, or the cells have reduced in number. So those are things you start asking yourself questions. Why? Is this happening together with joint pains, together with a funny rash that you can't understand? So when you tie up all those things, you start thinking lupus. If you really want to make a diagnosis, then the first basic test that you should do is something called the ANA, the anti-nuclear antibody. It's really like the opening door. So if you do an ANA and it's positive, That is okay. That's a very good start. Then you look at the symptoms, as I said. Does this person have joint symptoms, joint pain, joint swelling? That is one. Does the person, Nora mentioned that she lost her memory sometimes.
Yeah, she did.
It affects the brain. So does this person have fog, memory loss? Do they have seizures? That's another one. You ask yourself, is the rash there? The malar rash? Oh, that's another one. You do the tests, if the patient may present with symptoms which are suggestive of kidney disease. Do they have swelling of the feet? Do they have a puffy face? Oh, that's another one that you look into. Or do they have a chest pain, difficulty in breathing, which may be the heart or the lungs? That's something else you're looking into. Then do they have the general unwellness? Do they have sores in the mouth? So now you use your ANA. You use these symptoms in the different systems of the body. Then you go to more specific tests because, of course, you're not going to jump. They are not, these things are not very cheap. Then you go and do things like, we call it the double-stranded DNA. Then you do something called a complement. And then you do this anti-SM, anti-Smith antibodies. Now, when you do all these tests, which actually have to be analyzed by especially someone who actually understands what they are doing.
Yes.
Then you're able to make a diagnosis.
And that is the part where I'll ask you to point our viewers to the right direction or to the right place to go to, because I'm imagining everything you're describing might not be very easy for the pharmacy down the road where some of our viewers may want to go, because that's the image I have in my mind. Somebody has general uneasiness and they'll go down to the pharmacy and get Panadol or something else. So you have to point us to the right people to go to. And that is where the question comes in of how common is lupus in Uganda from your experience, and how successful has it been in identifying, the people with it, and what are the success rates in keeping them safe? But as I've been showed, we have to go for a break, but when we return, we shall start from there. How common is it? What are the success, rates in Uganda? And yeah, this feels very difficult for me, I must admit. It's a very complex disease. Let's take a break. When we return, we shall be looking at how common this is in Uganda, because Nora's case is very extreme. I've never seen anything like that, and I think you too, but let's return shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back from the break, and thanks for staying with us here this morning on NTV Medical Matters. I am Viola Kusasira. We are supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and today we are discussing a very complex, illness that truly I'm feeling a bit of brain fog trying to understand what this is. But it's called lupus, and if you watch the first half, we had a story with Nora, and she has transformed so much that it's very difficult to tell it's the same person in pictures. But Dr. John here is talking to us about it and trying to break it down for you and I to understand, but still it feels complex. But Doctor, before we broke off, we're speaking about how quickly somebody can tell the signs and then run to get help, but also where exactly do they go in order to not delay the diagnosis?
Okay, what I'll try to make us understand is that as complex as the disease is, do not take it upon yourself to make a diagnosis, because it's really not your business. Leave that to us, the medical professionals. But then if you find that you are having these symptoms, as we've mentioned, brain fog, fatigue unexplained, joint pains, weight loss, low-grade fever, and these are on and off for an unexplained reason, I think you are a kind of person who needs to seek attention. In addition to that, if you have a rash, especially on the face, or you have some form of photosensitivity, those areas where you're exposed to the sunshine and you have rashes, then you really want to look into these things. You want to seek help. Go to your doctor, your regular doctor, and if there is no clear diagnosis as to why you have these things, please escalate it up to what we call an internal medicine specialist or a rheumatologist. Usually we go up the ladder. So do not stay in the small clinic when over months you're having on and off fevers, joint pains, rashes, unexplained, and especially because this is a female disease. So if these diseases are rotating around your period, that's actually very significant. So please, in that case, please ensure that your doctor refers you higher up so that you get help.
And I'd asked a question earlier before we broke off, how common this is in Uganda, in your experience, and the success rates?
It's difficult to say how common it is because you know our health-seeking behavior. We usually take forever to come to hospital, and we've tried everything else before coming. But then there was a study which was done in Mulago, that was in 2020, and they just went through the different files, and it was estimated to about 5.5% of the population. So that's a bit an idea of what we have, yes. But then as I said, it's more in women,
yes,
9 times more in women than men. And again, in that age, 15 to 45 years.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
What would you say are the main triggers of lupus?
First of all, you need to know that it has a very strong genetic predisposition. So in doing the history taking, we want to find out, is there anyone in the family, is there a parent? In a study that was done in Taiwan, they found out that it actually goes up to 43%. Genetic predisposition. So it's really, really strong. That's one. And then if twins, it's also a lot stronger.
Yeah.
And then strangely, even among twins, it's more in the females than in the males. So yeah, so that's the burden of the disease. The triggers are multiple. As we've said, there are hormonal changes. There is stress. Now, all autoimmune diseases, stress is a trigger. And stress starts from work stress, family stress, to sickness. That's also called a stressor. So all these things can stress. And when you have stress, it triggers off things in the body. Fatigue can trigger this. Exhaustion, extreme exhaustion, extreme sunlight.
Yeah.
So these are things. And then there are certain drugs that could also trigger. It's difficult to say this drug. But then we've seen that drugs that have sulfur and some penicillins may also trigger some of these things. So you'll find out that lupus and other autoimmune diseases, I remember there's a patient of mine whom I treated for so many years, and then suddenly she shows up with an autoimmune disease, and I'm like, I've never known you to have this. And in talking to her, she had gone through a divorce.
Oh.
Then I understood. So the stress of the divorce triggered. And when finally we put her on medication, but then when finally she was able to overcome that, the symptoms disappeared.
Yeah.
So stress can actually trigger, and it will affect the cycle of the disease. Yeah.
Why do a lot of people first think of HIV when they see somebody with lupus?
I think we always, as human beings, we are looking for answers. And lupus is your farthest answer in society. So why. HIV seems to be the most, it has been blamed for everything. As I usually say, I'm a Christian. Yeah. We blame the devil for everything, even our laziness, we'll still blame on the devil. So, but then you see HIV comes in with rashes.
Yes.
And also for photosensitivity, and then there are those PPE rashes. HIV comes in with weight loss. HIV comes in with weakness. So remember we said it was a mimicker?
Yes.
So it can also mimic HIV. Yeah, so it's easy to blame HIV for that.
So when you look at chances of survival, as I'd asked, what are some of the interventions there, and can stem cell transplant save somebody from lupus?
No, I don't think we've gone into stem cell yet. Generally, come in early, a diagnosis is made, and then you're started on treatment. The treatment is actually quite effective. And I'll say simple, but not simple. Simple to those who know how to use it. So I'm not saying simple means that everyone can give it, but those who actually know, it's simple because once you make a diagnosis, you want to manage the triggers. Because if you can manage the triggers, you're going to reduce the number of flares. And we've talked about the triggers here.
Yeah.
So if you manage that, rest, sleep well, avoid stress, that will help. Then the second thing is that you manage the flares. If someone has pain, you manage the pain. You use NSAIDs. One of the drugs we use quite often in those flares is what we call steroids.
Yeah.
And I really want to, steroids are wonder drugs, but they're also very, 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 very much abused in this society. So even though, and that's the problem, because a patient will go to a small clinic and has joint pain, and the first thing they'll give the patient is DEXA.
Okay.
And DEXA will take away the symptoms. And, but it doesn't cure the disease.
Yeah.
And prolonged use of these steroids actually leads to other diseases. So, yes, let's use our steroids, but let's use them well.
There is a point that I'm very concerned about that I just want our viewers to understand. At what point can a medical practitioner here in Uganda refer you to somebody higher when they feel like, what's happening? I don't understand it. How equipped are we to be able to refer these people higher, and to who, in order to have this managed real quickly? The signs that you talked about and all of these manifestations, they seem to be something where somebody will go and find the steroids you're talking about. So at what stage do we get to see somebody being moved higher to where they can be managed?
The responsibility is on two people. One is on the patient, and the second is on the medical practitioner. But both of them bear a lot of responsibility. One, it's your life. So if you're not getting well, please push to be escalated.
Where should that person go?
I would say, for example, in Kampala, all the big hospitals, UMC Victoria Hospital, Nakasero, Case, IHK, Kampala Hospital, all of these have specialists who are ably trained to manage such diseases. So that's one very easy way of referring. That's private hospital. Then, of course, the government side, you have the regional hospitals, which have specialists. So go there, and you'll be helped. Mulago has actually a rheumatology clinic, which is specialized for such problems.
I actually have, do we have a caller? There is somebody coming through. Yes, good morning. What's your name and your question? Oh, I think he got off, sadly. But I was just remembering a lady that I spoke to who went to one of these places, and the person taking care of her kept saying, you know, you young people, you have chejo, you're showing off. She had no idea what she was suffering from, but the person too was trying to force her to believe it's something else. And that's where my concern is. How able are we to refer our people to the best, possible solutions? She ended up going to Dubai. That's where she was fixed from. Because wherever she went in Kampala, they kept telling her, you're just concocting stuff. Because you said 5%. That is very low. I don't understand how many people in our health system understand what this is.
Well, so the onus also is on the medical practitioner. If you do not understand what you're dealing with, please refer. If you're a clinician, at least send to a medical officer. If you're a medical officer, send to a physician. If the physician cannot handle, he will ask for a rheumatologist. So they are clear. And these specialties are available in the regional hospitals and the national referral hospitals. So let's also develop an attitude of not hoarding. And also not hoarding patients. And also not telling patients, you know what, I don't know what's wrong with you. Refer the patient to the next person.
Yes, please. We can hear you. What's your name and your question? Step away from your TV set so that we can get you clearly. Yes, please. Yeah. Yes.
He got a rush on the thing went to the armpit and then the blood.
Yes.
It was itchy, and then it could freeze and then sometimes pass, so that he had to like pass when moving.
Okay.
Lupus.
Sorry, did you get that?
It was a rush. Yeah, I can hear you. You're asking whether that could be lupus. Okay, okay. Okay, we could hardly hear you, but thank you for your question. We are going to try and tackle that. Thank you. The brother had a rash that was spreading to the armpits and then to the groin area, and she's wondering whether that could also be a sign of lupus.
It's unlikely, but I'll advise her to at least see a dermatologist.
Wouldn't you also say that in order to actually find out whether it's lupus, it has to be coupled with the other signs you talked about?
Yes, definitely. That's why it's difficult to, one, it's a man. So it's also, it's more unlikely. Remember, we look at the 9-to-1.
Yeah.
But then, and even the position of the rash, the groin and those areas. So the best thing for this person is to seek help. Start with your nearest doctor, who can refer you both to a dermatologist or to a physician.
So I also have a question from a viewer who says, may he also talk about fertility and reproduction issues in lupus patients, and what can patients do to have children if they're interested? Many of us have that challenge. I personally was told that I won't be able to bear children naturally, so what can such a patient do?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. The issues may not really have to be the lupus, but it has to do with everything else. Because now when you have lupus, Nora got lupus after she had a child. So, I mean, you can actually produce children, but then there are the drugs. The drugs may affect the process of pregnancy, which becomes a problem. However, some people actually, when they get pregnant, the symptoms are abated because of the hormonal changes. Yes. So I would not say per se lupus doesn't really cause infertility. And I think if she works with her physician or rheumatologist and the gynecologist, they can work around a way around it very, very, very ably.
When we were speaking to Nora, we actually saw one of the other patients, and she was doing well. She has improved. Her hair has come back, though in a different texture, though. By the way, about the hair, I had Nora ask a question. Her hair came back like baby hair, very soft and fragile. What causes that?
Of course, when you have inflammation on the scalp, you destroy what they call the hair follicles. Yeah. And this has been happening over time. So the hair follicles grow again from scratch.
Like an infant?
Yes, so you're growing everything again.
I think we have somebody on the line. Please speak up and tell us your name and your question.
I'm calling from Turkey.
Yes, what's your question? What is your question?
I wanted to know how can someone test lupus and where is the hospital? Where can I test the lupus?
Thank you for that question. That's what I've been trying to drive home. Where should our people go? Directly, without actually having to first go to the clinic to get painkillers. Where can they go directly?
Okay, if you think you have lupus, I would say, go to any of the government regional hospitals, ask to see a dermatologist, and ask to see a physician. These people will be able to ably make a diagnosis and either refer you to a rheumatologist, because we do not have that many, that's why I'm saying.
What is a rheumatologist?
A rheumatologist is somebody who has done what they call internal medicine and then did a supra-specialty in diseases of the joints and connective tissues. So yeah, so that is really, this is one of their babies. Yeah. So go to one of these hospitals. If you're in private care, go to one of the big hospitals, both around Kampala and in the different regions. You will find a physician there and who'll be able to help you.
One of the side effects that I saw from some of the medication is excessive weight gain.
Yeah.
So for somebody watching that has got lupus or is on treatment and is losing hope, or they feel very bad about the side effects of the treatment, what can you say to them today?
The biggest issue with the weight gain is the steroids. And that's why I said, let's be very, 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 and I keep insisting with the steroids, because they are magical in taking away symptoms, but over time you will pay. One of them is weight gain. So when you have to use steroids, we use them, call it pulse, we use them for pulses. Yeah. For a short time, manage the symptoms, and then take them off. We have other drugs we use to manage lupus. We have things, the cornerstone of the treatment of lupus is an anti-malaria called hydroxychloroquine. Became a bit popular around COVID. Yeah. Everyone was talking about hydroxychloroquine. Yes, it's the cornerstone of treatment. So it helps to balance. You know what we are trying to do? Remember we talked about soldiers? You're trying to tell the soldiers, do not fight. Don't fight your own people. Calm down. So it balances the immunity. Then we have other drugs which we can use. We have, we call them the biologics, disease-modifying anti-rheumatoid drugs, and the non-biologics. Now, these can also be used, which will not give you the side effects of weight gain. So the biggest issue is the steroids. Let's use them for a short time. Let's use the alternatives, manage the symptoms, and then people are fine.
I had terms like, I feel my body shutting down. When a patient says something like that, I feel my body shutting down. How can you explain that to our viewers so that they can relate in case something like that happens to you and you're not yet sure what it is, then you can run quickly and seek attention?
You mean someone on treatment or someone not on treatment?
Somebody beginning to notice they are sick.
Okay. Now, that's a very difficult term to explain because we all feel shutting down differently. Even just like claustrophobia, someone may be claustrophobic in this room, another person needs to be put in a small coffin to feel claustrophobic. So it's very, very relative.
It was something to do with, I feel my body failing.
Yeah, but then when you just feel that you get up in the morning and getting out of bed it's a chore. It should not be. Standing up from a sitting position is difficult. Doing your basic things, driving to work is difficult. Concentrating is difficult. Now, that's what I will understand when someone says everything is shutting down. So you've been reduced to just surviving. Yeah. Yes.
Speaking about extreme cases of lupus, I've seen somebody have to need a kidney transplant.
Yes. As I said, now lupus affects the kidneys very much. I mean, among the three things that you'll find lupus in, the top three is the skin, the kidneys, and then you'll find it in the joint. Yeah. So you have arthritis. Sometimes it's actually mistaken for rheumatoid arthritis, or sometimes they are both there. So, but then the kidneys, it affects the kidneys, and if that is not identified and managed, or many times people actually come in when they have already kidney failure. And when you have chronic kidney failure and the medications have failed to remedy the situation, the only option is to do transplant. Yeah. So it actually can lead to that. Yeah.
We saw that Nora has a bit of sores on her skin, you know. Hers is very visible, but the other person that we saw, there is nothing to tell that she's actually sick. So for a patient like that, and for a doctor watching, but also a patient watching who has a hard time explaining that they're actually really sick, how would you advise them? They look normal on the outside, actually.
Let's learn to trust what our patients say. If someone says that they're in pain, trust that they're in pain. If someone says they have joint pains. But you see, now when you tell me that, I'm going to run tests. I'm not just going to say, ignore you or take what you say. But if your fatigue, your joint pains, your weakness, that's a very strong symptom, ties with the fact that when I do your blood test, I find out that you have the antibody for ANA is positive and the specific antibodies for lupus are also positive, yeah, then I'm able to make a diagnosis, yeah.
So this question is going to be about what lupus patients should not do or should avoid. I will also ask a question about nutrition. One of the patients was given, she was put on a diet that was actually boosting her immunity. And the immunity in this case is the problem. It's actually the one that is fighting the cells. So if you boost somebody's immunity, but again, we're trying to not, get the cells to be fought. So it's a bit confusing there. What should they do? What should they eat? What should they avoid? Well,
generally eat healthy. There are no clear restrictions on what to eat. The things I would tell them not to do is to avoid smoking, because smoking is a known trigger, and avoid excess alcohol. If you must drink.
And you have lupus?
If you must drink.
When you're a patient? Can you even drink?
Well, and that's why I said must, capital letter. If you must drink. But we generally tell people to avoid these things. Yeah. Avoid cigarette, avoid alcohol. watch out on your antibiotics. Antibiotics that have sulfur, antibiotics that have penicillins may be a trick for you. Make sure you're well hydrated, make sure you sleep well, avoid stress.
Okay, so I have, very interesting comments from my viewers here, and I'll just give you one. Okay, so the other one is about wrapping up lupus for somebody who has just joined in order to understand it in a nutshell, but the other one has to do with mental health. You spoke about stress and how it's a big, big trigger, and one of our viewers is saying, we go through a lot and people around us don't care, so we are stressed. And what can we do? How can we avoid that? Our mental health is struggling, is suffering, so most likely we are going to end up with lupus. So what should we do? That's the question.
I advise everybody to once in a while check in on a psychologist. You know, in my practice, once you send someone to a psychologist, they think this person thinks I'm mad. Well, the statistics say that 14% of us have some mental issues. Yeah. So there's a lot of stress. Life gives us a lot of stress. And many times you're unable to handle the stress. But make it a habit of going to see a psychologist from time to time. They will help you with coping mechanisms to manage the stress. I think I'll have to say that that'll be my comment for the person, because there is no treatment for stress and we cannot change life. The sun is going to rise and it's going to set at some particular time. Yes. And one of the issues with lupus, of course, mental health is a big issue with them, particularly because, one, there's stigma. And this stigma comes from everywhere. And there's also a change in your body image. Imagine you're a woman, your hair is falling, your face is puffy, your skin has changed, you had a beautiful skin. And so there is a lot. And as a society, let's learn to be kind. I mean, let's just learn to be kind. It's difficult. There's no treatment for kindness, but let's just learn to be kind. and let's learn to be, not to be judgmental. Of course, these people are accused of HIV, they're accused of witchcraft. It's just a disease. I will say it, and I've said it before. Someone may have lupus. Another person may have high blood pressure. Another one has diabetes, another one has a mental illness. They are all diseases. So nobody should sit down and say, oh, yours is worse than the other. No. Let's be kind to one another.
I like that you say we need to be kind, because, people did drag Nora. She talks about it, and she really went through it with her mental health. And when I mentioned that there is a celebrity that I was following, and I saw her journey, she was abused for being fat, for gaining weight, for looking ugly, for, so her mental health took a nosedive because of the side effects of all this. So much happens around it. So in a nutshell, what is lupus for somebody just joining? And just summarize that. So for
someone just joining, and in a summary, lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease that affects almost all organs of the system, but mainly the skin, the joints, and the kidneys. It's a disease that waxes and wanes, so you have good times and you have bad times. And the diagnosis, though is readily available, though it's simple, it's not readily available. So please, in case you find that you have unexplained fatigue, joint pains, brain fog, and you're not getting any headway with your doctor, please seek a more senior medical professional, seek a physician, seek a rheumatologist. If you have a rash, seek a dermatologist. You may be helped, and it may be lupus, and a diagnosis is made, and your life will be much better.
Thank you very much. Unless you have anything else to say in half a minute, I'll be letting you go.
Well, I come from UMC Victoria Hospital. We are located at plot 54B, Old Chira Road, opposite Uganda Funeral Services. The hospital provides, it's a multi-specialty hospital, and it can be a one-stop for almost everything. So you can visit us, and we'll definitely be able to help you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. John, for this discussion about lupus. As complex as it was, I really hope that our dear viewers got something. We are happy to have you this morning, and I hope that we shall discuss this sometime again in the future so we can digest it properly. But we appreciate your time and your insight.
Thank you.
And dear viewers, thank you very much for always being a part of NTV Medical Matters. Today we discussed lupus, very, very difficult disease there, but we shall see you again on Monday. Make sure that you look out for yourself and always seek medical attention very fast in case you don't understand something. I am Viola Xasia. NTV Medical Matters is supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Have a very lovely week ahead.